We've discussed over many days the failures of the presidency of Joe Biden and why it is failing the American people. As gas skyrockets over 40 cents just today at a station near my house, I'm told. It's going to get a lot worse, which is really bad news for Dementia Joe, but it's worse news for you and for me. You see, it's a reflection of the terrible policies we're dealing with when it comes to the radical socialists and the policies they dump on us while they live their opulent lifestyle. And that's the truth. Stephen Moore, who's on this program often, says the gas prices are going to rise because that's what Joe Biden wants, and it's what OPEC wants. Listen to this.
First of all, I mean, it's almost laughable that the Biden administration says they're taking all these steps to lower gas prices, because almost every step they've taken since Biden has come into office has been to reduce American supply of oil. You know, the first thing that Joe Biden did when he was president, when he canceled the Keystone XL pipeline. So the gas prices are rising again, and I predict they're going to go back up above $4 a gallon, is because you just got a worldwide reduction in the supply. And you saw what the Saudis announced just the other day, that they're going to cut back on production because they want to get that price back up to, you know, about $4 to $4.50 a gallon.
$4 to $4.50 a gallon. Well, heck, they're already there in some places. I just checked GasBuddy.com here. In several stations in Michigan, it's already $4.49. Other places still 50 or 60 cents lower, but it won't take long. Now, we've talked about the collapse of the southern border and that some 3 million people have poured into the country illegally in the last year. In New York City, it has a tiny fraction, with about 12,000 illegals that have been bussed up there, coming in recently. In New York City, they have found that over 76% of those that have showed up illegally remain in homeless shelters the entire time they've been there, with no end in sight. And in other states, as is so easily predictable, the hordes of illegals have no jobs, no homes, no prospects. So they'll do whatever they can to survive, including fueling the crime wave across the nation. Illegal aliens are being arrested in Florida, for example, for looting in the aftermath of Hurricane Ian, believe it or not. Listen to this.
And we've had 4 looters that were arrested, I guess a couple days ago, and they need to be brought to justice, and we're not going to tolerate it. But, you know, 3 of the 4 are illegal aliens. And so these are people that are foreigners. They're illegally in our country. And not only that, they try to loot and ransack in the aftermath of a natural disaster. I mean, they should be prosecuted, but they need to be sent back to their home country. They should not be here at all.
They should not be here at all. We just tick through the problems here of this administration. We've seen the number of police officers in America plummet in the face of radical leftists, calling for defunding the police, leaving communities vulnerable, but it doesn't change the minds of those on the wacko fringe. They keep pushing these dangerous ideas. Radical far-left kooks like Democrat Cori Bush of St. Louis, still pushing the narrative, believe it or not, of defund the police. Listen to this.
And you've stuck by it. In fact, you're one of the few Democrats now who still says, let's defund the police. Are you worried at all that that could hurt some of your colleagues going into the midterm elections?
See, the thing about defund the police is we have to tell the entire narrative. People hear defund the police, but you know what they'll say? Say reallocate, say divest, say move. But it's still the same thing. We can't get caught up on the words. People spend more time focusing on the word defund than they spend on caring and addressing the problem of police violence in this country.
Really? Really? We can't get caught up in the words. Of course not. And we've seen one bad decision after another in how we are handling our financial matters in this nation. We're watching Europe fall into the hands of a devastating energy crisis that was completely avoidable, by the way. And a clear warning to all of us in America that we need to change what we are doing or we will fall into the same bottomless pit, living by candles in darkness and cold. And instead of focusing on the economy, taming inflation, helping slow down unemployment and giving small businesses a break. No, Biden officials, will they continue to pursue ridiculous and destructive policies, woke policies, of course. The Treasury Secretary, for example, Janet Yellen, among the few people in this nation that are actually dumber than Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Now she's spending her time on woke policies, too. Not the disaster of the nation's economy and the problems we face. No, She has more important things to do like this. Listen.
We know that we need to do all we can to build a fairer economy, and that's why we have put racial equity at the forefront of our agenda at Treasury and across the Biden administration. We did this first with the implementation of the American Rescue Plan that was tried to build the foundation for an equitable economic recovery. And now through our recently passed economic agenda that includes the Inflation Reduction Act, the CHIPS and Science Act, and the bipartisan infrastructure law, we're trying to invest in communities that have often been ignored or overlooked.
Yeah. There she is. The best and brightest. Oh, she's something anyway. But the biggest problem we face is foreign policy. And Joe Biden's completely incompetent approach to everything happening in the world. First, let's look at our readiness for war. We've talked about the disastrous situation with the United States military that is unable to fill the quotas it needs to keep our fighting force in top shape. And yet, the Biden administration is still more concerned about woke policies, as if somehow sex change operations will make us safer as a nation in the face of aggression. But far more concerning than any of that right now is the United States' foray into Ukraine for no actual American national security interest at all that I can tell. And until someone can tell me why we ever needed to be there, I will never agree with any involvement in Ukraine at all. It's become a proxy war. And that proxy war between the United States, our NATO allies, and Russia could soon turn into something far more dangerous because of Joe Biden's threat to Vladimir Putin and Russia back in February, telling the world the U.S. would end the Nord Stream pipelines, the same pipelines that connected Russian energy to Germany, and the same lines that were just bombed and put out of commission, most likely forever. And the whole world, by the way, is looking at America as the nation that pulled off that attack, maybe with some help from NATO partners like Poland, in what I've told you is an act of war.